My name is Rachael Trost. I'm an associate product manager of content for AccuWeather. For you, those here in New York, you may think of AccuWeather as ABC7's forecasting system. We are not that. We do work with ABC stations, but that is not our main company. As a product manager, I'm kind of giving you a little bit of a roadmap of what I'll be talking about. Going to start with a little bit about AccuWeather, kind of what we are, how we're using things, kind of our business objectives. Talk a little bit about our headless implementation of WordPress, why we went that route, why it's working for us, a little bit about how we're using the REST API to accomplish that, and then end with some content and product wins as we've transitioned to WordPress the last couple months. All right, so what's AccuWeather? So we are recognized as the most accurate source for weather forecasting and data in the world, which is super exciting. We were founded back in 1962 in State College, Pennsylvania. The WordPress VIP folks had the pleasure of visiting us out there. We do have a New York City office, thankfully for me. Great part of the country, though. If you're a Penn State alum, that's the place. We do a variety of different things. Main business, obviously, is weather forecasting. That's our main user case. We also do lots of enterprise relationships for businesses, so presenting weather data that they may need to make decisions about their business, as well as lots of local partnerships and syndication of our content, videos, podcasts, whatever it may be, to local partners. So we have a rather large site, so we make about 50 billion data calls a day internationally. So that can be anything from weather data, forecasting, what's it gonna look like in my city, anything like that. No surprise there that content is not the main thing that we do at AccuWeather. It is just a piece of that. It's still a large piece of it since we do make about 750 million calls to WordPress a day for our information. Content is still an important part of the business though. There's a couple reasons for that. I read a really interesting article a couple weeks ago talking about why the weather needs an editor. There's so much weather data out there. There's so many weather companies presenting information that you can get that kind of anywhere. But what differentiates weather, AccuWeather.com from the Weather Channel or any of our other competitors? Big piece of that, especially for me with my content background, is giving context and clarity to what that means to our user day to day. So as I'm thinking through kind of content products and how we're thinking through that at AccuWeather, very much it's how are we providing that value and how can we do it in a smarter, more efficient way. So talking a little bit about how we got into WordPress, this is in conjunction with a project we called Project Glacier at AccuWeather. It was relaunching our website. We were living back kind of a little bit in the dark ages and had a separate mobile site from a desktop site. We made that switch though earlier this year, went out to about 1% of our audience in July and finally went to 100% in September, which was very, very exciting. Big kind of point of this was just slimming down our tech stack and making the site more performance, faster, better for our users, XYZ, and also just giving us the flexibility to kind of adjust as needed. And with that change, the product team said, why at the same time don't we just make a new CMS change? Which is great and awesome and fun, but was a kind of a large project for us. As we were kind of shopping around vendors, it was, why are we picking WordPress? What's the use case for WordPress versus the other kind of vendors out in the space that we could be using? Historically, we've been on, started on a CMS system called Movable Type. Don't know if anyone here is familiar with it. It was great. Was on it for a long, long, long time. We moved to Brightspot a couple years ago. Issue with Brightspot was it was difficult for our content team to add new features, for us to adjust anything. We've been mostly decoupled from the CMS perspective for a very long time. But it was difficult for us to say, hey, we want to do this. We want to do any kind of custom development. It was not a friendly platform for that. So we kind of pitched this to our content team as, hey, WordPress has been around for a while. They have a lot of great new features. There's a lot more availability for development in this area. So we'll be able to kind of address your requests quickly and get things done from a perspective of there's a lot of stuff out there for us to build upon. Second kind of piece of this is, like I said, don't have to reinvent the wheel. We don't have to kind of start something from complete scratch if we want to do it. And then, sorry, I don't have my glasses on, so I'm like squinting. The review for future growth. Again, we can build new things as needed more quickly than we can in any other CMS that we had been previously using. So talk a little bit about our headless CMS. I'm not super technical, so if you do have lots of questions, unfortunately, the person from Ali we worked with Ali is here, but they were not the people working on our account, so can't really bring him up for questions, but I'll answer as best I can. Couple reasons why we went headless. Like I was saying before, content is not our main user case for coming to site. It's just a piece of it. For this instance, we did not want to have everyone, serve all the pages for WordPress. A headless implementation was the easiest thing for our specific use case. Works really well for us. I think it's a big win for us so far. It's much easier to do things. A couple challenges with it, though, is if we do want to kind of create any kind of customization for display, things like that, we have to do CMS work as well as the front-end work, which is fine because we've got, I think our product team works really well together, so we do have a good connection between, myself and our front-end product manager, Lisa, who's sitting over there. So we do get, that done, but it is sometimes causes delays or difficulties there. I promised my developers I'd talk a little bit about this because I think this is cool. So I can't answer again too many questions on this, but they promised I talked about it. We use the REST API for a lot of things. As we are just kind of serving endpoints and letting the front end kind of hit it for whatever they may need, we are having to kind of create a lot of custom routes for the API as well as different custom endpoints, whether it be for partners. We do a lot of kind of localized content. So if someone comes to our site and says, want to see the forecast in Buffalo, New York, we will present localized content in specific ways as well as a local partner. So we do have to create a lot of different custom endpoints for those reasons, as well as things for our articles, our videos, our landing pages, our various alerts in different spaces, things like that. So we are using this REST API a lot and expanding on it as much as we can. It's been a great, great tool for us in our kind of decoupled CMS. Talk a little bit about product and content wins to kind of finish up. So as we kind of were thinking through what we wanted to do with WordPress and how we wanted to build it, a couple questions came to mind. One, is it actually going to be usable? Big concern with our editorial team, who's been through a couple CMSs now, has been, we don't really know how to use it, we don't really understand it, we don't get why you're building this, we're not actually going to use it. And coming from a content background, I really sympathized. In past positions, it's been like, I don't understand what this tool does, why does it take you so long to develop this, I don't understand XYZ. Second kind of question involved, does it hit that sweet spot of giving us all the information we need in terms of taxonomies, DMAs, whatever we may be using, as well as keeping it simple. I think a lot of CMS sites can get really complex, so we wanted to keep ours as simple as possible for use cases as well as performance in XYZ. And then, third, does it make my developers happy? Which is, for me, very important since I'm dealing with them day to day. I want to make sure that they are using something that they like, that there's resources and documentation out there, that they are being able to be, as accomplished and getting things done as much as possible. And the answer to all three of these, even though the third one did not come up, is yes. Oh, it looks like formatting change, sorry. Our content team loves WordPress so far. Our instance is very easy for them to use. The way that we've kind of built things into it, we try to make it as friendly for them as possible. So focus on usability is a big, big part of my job. Making sure that what we're building for them may be really cool and groundbreaking and whatnot, but if they're not going to use it, it doesn't really matter. So we want to make sure that what we're building and putting out there is something they're really going to be focused on and using day to day. Yes, in terms of the simplicity, it's making it a lot easier for us to serve pages, higher performance, faster loading sites, things like that. It's also making it a lot easier for us to target content different spaces. Big project for us in end of this year, early Q1 next year is kind of personalized content and how we're serving that across site. WordPress just making it 10 times easier for us to do that. And yes, my developers are really happy. If they were here, I would have them come up here and tell you, but they're much happier working in WordPress so far. Just want to talk through a couple things we've done that are somewhat customizational for our content team. A lot of folks do this, so it's not really groundbreaking stuff, but we focused a lot on kind of customizable user roles. We do have a number of contributors that contribute to the site. We don't want them to have access to something or be able to publish something or see something, so we want to restrict very closely on those roles. We also do have some customizations on our Gutenberg blocks. Kind of focus for us right now that we're working through is being able to import information from weather data to include editorially. That's a big project we're working through, kind of hitting our own AccuWeather API, bringing that into WordPress, and how can we do that best for our editorial team to include that weather data in the content they're writing. And then, like I said a little bit earlier, content targeting. We just went through a very large project of recategorizing and re-tagging all of our historical content, which was a rather large project since we had hundreds of thousands of pieces of content that we needed to reorganize. Thankfully, WordPress made it very, very easy to do that through CLI commands and things like that. But Now that we have that project completed, we're hoping that we can kind of build off of more personalized serving of content, whether it be in our right rail on site or in our center rail or in kind of localized news feeds for people checking their weather. Takeaways, don't reinvent the wheel from a product perspective. That's kind of been my thing moving into product is there's so much documentation out there, especially for WordPress. It's been fantastic for us as a team to kind of use that as a building block for it. Focusing on usability. I really, from like my own personal background, if there's something in the CMS I didn't understand, I wouldn't touch it. So a big piece of what I want to do is making sure that our content team is using what's out there and actually making the effort to better use it in whatever use case it may be. And then, for us, Headless CMS has really been a big win for us. Definitely it's very very kind of use case specific for us. It's been great since that's not really our main focus for our site in general, but for, being able to serve our content in a smart, easy way, using the Headless implementation has been fantastic. And that's kind of it. Any questions? Alrighty then. If you do,
What would you say the biggest drawback to your headless architecture is then?
I think, at least if my devs are up here, they may have a different answer, but from my experience so far, it's been being able to somewhat scale up with it. We did have some instances with our video server JW player in terms of getting those videos serving. We do have a front end kind of response time we have to hit of 1.5 seconds, and if we don't hit that, the site, all the content does not show up. So that's been a bit of a tricky situation. We have kind of worked through that and been able to address the bugs additional to that, but I would say that's been the biggest hurdle for us.
You mentioned you had to restructure some of your older content. So, can you expand a little bit more about that? Like, what kind of changes?
Yeah, sure. So it wasn't super duper complicated. We historically have been creating content since kind of the company really went on the web, but the problem was we weren't identifying it in a clear way. We didn't have clear kind of content verticals and tagging systems. We really want to make sure that as we're moving towards more personalization of content, we're able to serve it in a smart way. So that kind of involved, clearly working with the content team and getting their strategy on, okay, what verticals are you guys actually going to cover, what does well historically, and then, what we want to do moving forward, and then going back through all the existing things that we had migrated in and clearing up, okay, great, this actually fits in this category, that fits in that category, and running different commands to say, hey, this shouldn't be a category, please change this to a tag, or all the articles tagged this need to be tagged this instead. Just so we can keep that kind of historical act, because we have a ton of evergreen content, which I was surprised learning going in. I thought a lot of our content was really weather focused, but we do have a ton of historical content we didn't want to completely lose as we move CMS systems. Yeah.
Is your WordPress hosted in WordPress VA?
Yes, it is. Cool. Thank you, guys. Any questions? That's my information. But it's been great. Thanks for having me.